Before the moonwalk, there was a belt. Before the stadiums with hundreds of thousands of souls shouting his name, there was a dark closet where a child was locked for hours. As a shy child forged in fear and the most brutal discipline, he became the most electrifying artist to have walked the face of the earth. This is not just the story of an icon. It is the story of the price of a dream, of how the purest talent can be born from the deepest pain. To understand the king, one must first know the story of the child who fought to survive.
Welcome to Trembol Podcast, the place for music stories that thrill.
Gary, Indiana, 1958. The industrial heart of America, a place of steel, smoke, and modest dreams. At 2300 Jackson Street, in a tiny house with just 3 rooms, the 7th of 9 siblings was born. Maureen was the oldest. Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Latoya, and Marlon were born before him. Randy and Janet Jackson came after. No one could imagine that within those walls, the greatest artist the world would ever know was about to be born. His name, Michael Joseph Jackson.
I always wanted to be a storyteller, and I think I became one. My story begins in that house. To me, as a child, it seemed huge, but the reality is that there were so many of us that in the harshest winters, we would all huddle in the kitchen with the oven door open to feel some warmth. My mother, Catherine, whose great-grandparents had been slaves, was the center of everything. She worked in a department store. She was the most protective and beautiful person I have known. She had polio as a child, which prevented her from fulfilling her dream of being an artist. But she poured all that art into me and my siblings. She sang to us, taught us piano and clarinet. Every song I have written is ultimately for her.
In Michael Jackson's discography, there is a song that is especially dedicated to his mother, Catherine. Do you know which one it is? If you said Speechless, you are correct. It is included in the album Invincible from 2001. In several interviews, Michael explained that he was inspired by his mother's love and support, and that he wrote it as a kind of gift to her.
Love is magical, that's how I feel. But there are worlds and worlds of ways to explain, to tell you I love you. Speechless, speechless,
My father, Joseph, was different. He was a man forged in hardship, a tireless worker. Believe me, I never got to know him as a father, only as my agent. He used music to escape the harshness of his life. He had an R&B band with his brother, the Falcons, and they practiced at home. Music was our only entertainment. None of us thought that what started as a game would be the origin of the Jacksons, or what we would later call the Jackson 5. I want to clarify something from the start. My father never stole a cent from us. He took care of our interests in his own. I am grateful for that, even though our relationship was very complicated.
Catherine and Joseph were polar opposites, with undeniable chemistry, but both were strict. Catherine, from her faith as a Jehovah's Witness, and Joseph had a philosophy: to raise winners. For him, that meant there was no room for error. Discipline was enforced with the belt, with a rod, or with anything he had at hand.
It started when I was only 3 years old. My brothers endured the blows in silence, but I did not. I rebelled, tried to hit back, which made him hit me harder. There was no affection, only discipline. Once he locked me in a dark closet for hours. The terror of that stayed with me forever. I hated and feared him in equal measure. I remember my childhood simply as work. I would come back from school and rehearse until midnight without stopping. The other kids were playing in the park, and I could only watch from the window. I loved singing, but it was too hard for a 5-year-old.
The Jacksons' origin in music was an accident. What? Tito, Jackie, and Jermaine took their father's guitar without permission. One day, Tito broke one of the strings. Joseph, furious, beat him, but then asked him to play and was amazed. He saw the raw talent and knew that was his ticket out. He bought what Michael remembers as an incredible bright red electric guitar. He got a couple of young guys named Johnny Jackson and Randy Rancifer to play the drums and the organ. They only needed a second voice to accompany Jermaine. For that, there was the mother, Catherine, who directed Joseph's attention to Michael's fascinating voice, joining the family group at 5 years old. They were already a real band. Catherine wasn't convinced, begging Joseph to use the money to buy food. But Joseph's blind faith in music prevailed.
I listened to my brother Jermaine, who was the lead singer, and I imitated him. But dancing, I always knew how to do. It was just in me. I also loved my school and my teachers. I remember a performance where I sang "Climbing Every Mountain" from The Sound of Music. The reaction was overwhelming. People were crying, applauding nonstop. I didn't understand it because to me, I was just singing.
Climb every mountain.
That was the beginning. They started to sweep every music contest they entered. Michael, with his supernatural charisma, became the lead singer, replacing his brother Jermaine. They always won, but each victory was preceded by grueling rehearsals under Joseph's watchful eye and the constant threat of his belt. Michael received more than his brothers because he tried to return every blow to his father like a madman. They always had a very turbulent relationship.
When I was 8 years old, we won our first big trophy at Roosevelt Junior High singing "My Girl." That would make my father have us work for real. On weekends, we went from contest to contest in Chicago, from Monday to Friday, 5 shows every night at a place in Gary called Mr. Lucky's. At 9 years old, I was surrounded by bad comedians and strippers. I remember that what impacted me the most from that time was seeing a drag queen for the first time. I was fascinated. I saw so many things at such a young age that, as an adult, I think I focused on other, more innocent aspects of life. My father quit his job to be our full-time manager. Mom was worried, but nothing could stop Joseph's determination, nor our talent. I was always ready to perform, sing, dance, and have fun. We recorded our first song, "Big Boy." It was written by Mr. Keith, a friend of Dad who owned a music studio where we made our first recordings. We had to sell the records ourselves, but seeing our name printed on the label was an immense honor. "Big Boy," the song, was about a boy who wanted to fall in love. I didn't understand any of that, but I sang it with all my heart. We became very popular in the neighborhood. Many times I have been asked, who is the artist that inspired me the most? Without a doubt, James Brown. I have never seen anyone perform like him. Over the years, he would say that he has never seen anyone perform like me. I also adore Jackie Wilson, a master whose patent leather shoes I desperately wanted. Those shoes would be part of my future stage outfit, polished and shiny.
The Jackson 5 triumphed every time they sang, which attracted many fans. Their father, Joseph, took advantage of this by being unfaithful to their mother. Michael and his brothers knew, but they didn't say anything to avoid hurting her. Michael's relationship with his father only worsened over time. One day, when he arrived late to rehearsals, Joseph grabbed him and threw him against the instruments. The older he got, the more violent he became. The worst off was Michael, who tried to hit his father back. Michael ran fast to escape from his father. On many occasions, he succeeded. The ones that didn't.
He was tough. He would lose his temper. I just remember hearing my mother scream, "Joe, you're gonna kill him, you're gonna kill him, stop it, you're gonna kill him." And I was so fast, he couldn't catch me half the time, but when he would catch me, oh my God, it was bad.
One day, after a slap, Michael said to his father, "If you hit me one more time, I will stop singing." Joseph turned around and left.
And there he was, this young boy, a stranger to my eyes, drumming my faith with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly.
The day we won Amateur Night at the Apollo Theater in New York, the phone started ringing, but the real turning point came in 1968. We were called to perform on the national television program, The David Frost Show, but our father Joseph canceled it at the last minute. We didn't understand anything. Our father came up to us and said, "You have an audition for Motown Records." The dream was starting to come true. The audition was strange. We performed in silence. No one applauded. We thought we had failed. They took us to the boss's office, Barry Gordy. He looked at us intently and said words I will never forget. "I'm going to make you the biggest band in the world. You will be in the history books." And he added, "Your first 3 records will be #1. He was not wrong.
The 5 brothers and their father moved to a rundown hotel in Los Angeles, surrounded by the squalor of Hollywood. Michael, due to his special sensitivity, was sent to live with the person who would become his mentor and mother figure in the entertainment world, Diana Ross.
I adore her. Diana taught me about art, about style. She opened up a new world for me. We lived for almost a year and a half between her house and Barry Gordy's. When the first successes came, my whole family moved to California to a real house. We were the first kids band from Motown, and they wanted us to be role models. We went to school like normal kids, well, until fame made it impossible, and we had to have private tutors.
Motown was a hit-making machine, and the Jackson 5 its new engine. Producers like Dickie Richardson polished their sound, correcting their Gary, Indiana accent, making it more universal. Barry Gordy, the owner of Motown, was a genius of details. He would take apart and reassemble the songs over and over until they sounded perfect.
Our first single was I Want You Back. The first version we recorded, Barry didn't like at all. The owner of Motown, he made change after change. The truth is that I learned a lot from his perfectionism and applied it throughout my career. The song was released in 1969, selling 2 million copies in just 6 weeks. It was #1. Then ABC #1, The Love You Saved #1. And then came I'll Be There. This song was different. It was our true big hit. It dominated the charts. The words.
You and I must make a plan. We must bring salvation back.
Is one of my favorite verses of our entire career. By the way, that little high-pitched scream, the one. that would accompany me throughout my career. I copied it from Diana Ross. She did it in her recordings with the Supremes.
The first television program of the Jackson 5 was on Miss Black America, then on Hollywood Palace, presented by Diana Ross. The first time the brothers played with an orchestra, they felt like kings.
Are you ready, fellas? Yeah. 1, 2, hit my
Their first album, released in 1969, was called Diana Ross Presents the Jackson 5. The following year, they went on their first stadium tour. Jacksonmania was a reality. Tours all over the country. 95 concerts in 1971. Never Can Say Goodbye topping the charts. They returned to Gary, Indiana as heroes, filling a 15,000-seat auditorium twice. The mayor named their street Jackson 5 Boulevard. Michael was turning 12 years old, and Joseph could not be prouder. But behind the scenes, life was crazy.
We tried to have fun as best as we could. Races down hotel hallways, pillow fights, flying shaving cream, water balloons from balconies, prank calls. We ordered tons of food for other rooms. But fame also had a scary side. The crowds were crazy. The first time we went to England, there were 10,000 fans at the airport. We felt like we wouldn't get out alive. I have lifelong scars from fan scratches. From those experiences, I learned to cover my eyes because girls' nails can do a lot of damage.
Michael was terrified of the crowds that formed wherever they went. They pulled his hair, tried to kiss him. Once, when he was wearing a scarf, 2 fans started pulling from opposite sides. They almost choked Michael.
I wouldn't trade the memories of those days with my brothers for anything. In fact, I often wish I could relive them. Each of us was different. Jackie was the athlete. He worried about everything. Tito was the father figure, strong as a bull. He loved cars. Jermaine was my closest friend, funny and calm. The Marlon was very determined, a real joker. I used to sleep with Jermaine. Once, while we were sleeping, my father brought a group of girls to our room. We woke up and saw them laughing. That was one of the many bad things my father could do. Time went by and my voice started to change. I turned 14 years old. Until then, I had always accepted the producers telling me how to sing, but I felt it was time to contribute something of my own. I asked Berry Gordy to let me do it, and he agreed.
Michael said that his favorite songs from those times were ABC, included in the self-titled album from 1970, and I'll Be There, the main track of third album, released in 1970. Among his favorites was also Never Can Say Goodbye.
I never can say goodbye, girl. Baby, I never can say goodbye. I got to have you.
The separation between Michael and his brothers began when they started getting married. A part of Michael wanted everything to stay the same, but another part understood that this was normal and even good. They were not going to be together forever. While Tito settled down by getting married, his father and the rest of the brothers did just the opposite. They slept with a different fan in each city. On some occasions, even in the same room, with Michael listening quietly.
I had to share bedrooms with one of my brothers on the tours, and I was told by one of my brothers, no matter what, don't get up, don't open your eyes. And so I would hear these girls come in. I heard everything.
You heard them having sex?
Yeah.
That largely traumatized him. Just like when he turned 15 and was given a night with 2 prostitutes, no one knows if he slept with them or not. What we do know is that Michael would hire prostitutes in the future just to have someone to talk to. Michael was lonely. He had no friends. The only life he had known was the show business world.
Have you seen my childhood?
One of the key moments in my life would come in 1971 when I recorded my first solo album, Got to Be There. It was the idea of Berry, the owner of Motown. You won't believe it, but my first #1 as a solo artist came from a child's love for his pet, a rat. That was the plot of the movie Ben, whose soundtrack I was in charge of, with the single Ben being #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1972 when I was turning 14 years old.
If they had a
love Disney, cinema, fantasy, and I love the idea of being a cartoon character. So I was very excited when a cartoon series featuring us, the Jackson 5, as the main characters premiered on television.
Jackson 5.
At that time, we were fortunate to travel the world. We met the Queen of England, the Japanese or Chinese love for nature, and the incredible heritage of the Africans.
The early 70s were filled with albums by the Jackson 5. Maybe Tomorrow, Looking Through the Window, and the live albums, Going Back to Indiana and In Japan. But the Motown machine was starting to fail them. In 1973, Catherine, tired of the infidelities, asked Joseph for a divorce. Michael couldn't have been happier, but Joseph, with his insistence, convinced her that he was going to change, and Catherine went back to him. The Jackson 5 hadn't had any big hits since 1971. Their 73 album, Skywriter, had gone unnoticed. But everything would change with the album Get It Together and the mega hit Dancing Machine in 1971, bringing the Jackson 5 back to the top of the charts. For that song, Michael prepared a robotic dance that all the kids in the country started to imitate.
Although Motown didn't like it, we kept growing. So much so that my brother Jermaine married Hazel Gordy, the daughter of our boss. My younger siblings, Randy and Janet, joined us in our Las Vegas shows, turning us into the Jackson 9. We had total creative freedom in those shows. When we asked Motown for that same freedom for our albums, they refused. I had a very serious talk with Barry, and we made the toughest decision. We broke with Motown. Our last album with them would come in 1975 under the title Moving Violation. I cannot be more grateful for everything they did, but it was our time to fly solo. We started with the new label, Epic Records.
The separation was very traumatic. Jermaine, who was married to Berry Gordy's daughter, decided to stay at Motown, being replaced by Michael's brother, Randy. But that was not the worst. Joseph, who at the time had not read the full contract with Motown, discovered that the name Jackson 5 belonged to the record label and not to them. From that day on, they had to change their name to the Jacksons. To make amends, Michael's father signed a good contract with the new label, Epic, increasing their earnings from 11 cents per album sold with Motown to $1.05. At the time, the wholesale price of a record was around $3.50. But Joseph had made a second big mistake by not reading the contract signed with Motown. And it was not only that they kept the rights to the name Jackson 5, but for every song that Michael and his brothers had recorded, they had to pay an amount to Motown, whether it was released or not. To give you an idea, the Jackson 5 recorded 469 songs with Motown, of which only 174 were released. Michael and his brothers owed the record company more than $500,000. In the end, it was even worse. They had to pay almost $2 million for various reasons. Michael rightly considered Joseph a bad manager, but the truth is that without him, Michael Jackson as an artist probably would never have existed. What do you think? For Michael, this was a brutal lesson in how the music industry worked. Something that would serve him for the rest of his career.
We were asked to do a television show, and although I was totally against it, my brothers did want to, so we did it. It was successful, but I don't think it was the right thing for a group of musicians. So after the first season, I convinced them to quit. Our first album with the new label, Epic, was called The Jacksons and included 2 of our songs. One of them, Blues Away, was the first one I wrote entirely. We talked about overcoming a deep depression. The album was successful, but nothing compared to the past. Jermaine's solo career fared even worse. His album went unnoticed, cutting short his solo career. It was a time of many changes when I began to become very aware of my appearance.
The family was divided, and the pressure, as always, fell on Michael's shoulders.
I had a terrible case of acne. I was no longer that cute kid everyone expected. It was devastating for my personality. On stage, I was fine, but off it, I couldn't look people in the eye. I went from being a mischievous and sociable child to a serious and lonely person. My confidence grew over time. I changed my diet from processed and greasy foods to a much healthier one. That also helped me with the acne, but the loneliness was immense. There was a lot of speculation about whether I was gay, which hurt me because I wasn't. In fact, in 1977, I had a rather platonic relationship with a young actress named Tatum O'Neal.
Michael and Tatum had an on and off relationship. Tatum has stated that they kissed, but they did not sleep together. In the late 1970s, he was also with an African-American girl who called herself Mrs. Michael Jackson. Her real name was Stephanie Mills. Stephanie said that Michael was a passionate lover, but she was only referring to the kisses because they did not sleep together either.
My first girlfriend, who I really loved a lot, was Tatum O'Neal. I was pretty naive, I'm not joking. She told me to go over and lie on the bed, and I did. And she slowly walked over, and I wouldn't let him down, just walked away.
Going Places was the second album by the Jacksons with their new label, Epic. Released in 1977, it had fewer sales than its predecessors. It included a track by Michael Jackson called Different Kind of Lady. As sales were not going well, Michael and his father decided to go talk to the record company to propose that Michael and his brothers compose the songs for the new album. The record label that was about to drop them decided to give them that opportunity. In 1979, when Michael turned 19, his life took a turn. He got the role of the Scarecrow in the movie The Wiz, an African-American version of The Wizard of Oz. In it, he shared the spotlight with Diana Ross.
Don't you carry nothing that might be alone. Come on, ease on down.
The movie was a total failure, but for Michael, not everything was bad news. During the filming, he would meet the great producer Quincy Jones, who was in charge of the film's soundtrack. Michael and he became very good friends, which led to Michael proposing a few years later that he be the producer of his first album, Off the Wall.
At that time, I couldn't stop thinking about getting a nose job. My brothers and my father had called me Big Nose my whole life, and I had a huge complex, but my father, Joseph, wouldn't let me get surgery. He told me, "You don't fix what isn't broken." Even so, I was convinced. In 1979, I took advantage of a fall during a rehearsal where I hurt my nose to have my first surgery. The result can be seen on the cover of Off the Wall. It would be the first of quite a few surgeries.
In 1983, he would have another nose surgery. As a result, his nostrils were reduced, which made it harder for him to breathe, leading to another surgery a couple of years later. And between the years 1985 and 1992, he would continue to have 6 minor touch-ups, until in 1994, he had his 7th surgery, making his nose thinner and more pointed. Michael also had other surgeries on his eyes, lips, cheekbones, and chin. In the year 2000, the bridge of his nose, which was very thin, began to collapse, so he would undergo surgery several times until 2005 to rebuild it. This makes a total of about 10 nose surgeries.
Wow.
My great friend Jane Fonda told me not to do more, although I didn't listen to her. But the surgeries didn't make me happier. I was desperately sad. I walked alone at night, hoping to find someone to talk to. I, a superstar, suffered a loneliness that I cannot describe. physical transformation continued, but this time without surgeries. I stopped consuming fats, became a vegetarian, which made me lose a lot of weight, and my acne also disappeared. The years also accentuated the features of my face, so believe me, not everything was the scalpel.
In music, as you know, the record label had given the Jacksons an ultimatum. If their next album didn't succeed, they would be dropped. The positive part is that they could compose it themselves with their new company, the Peacock Productions. The result was Destiny, released in 1978. A cleaner and funkier sound. It contained the anthem Shake Your Body Down to the Ground, a mega hit. This would be followed by an even bigger hit from the Jacksons, Blame It on the Boogie.
It was a very stressful time, but I kept going. In 1979, when I turned 21, I took control of my career. My solo albums with Motown, Be There, Bend Music and Me, and Forever Michael had not succeeded, selling altogether less than 100,000 copies. But I was a new person and had already decided who would accompany me on my true first solo album, the incredible producer Quincy Jones.
The child prodigy was about to die, and from his ashes, an immortal icon would be born. The story of Off the Wall, Thriller, and everything that happened to the king of pop in the second part of the magnificent life of Michael Jackson.
I await you in the second part of my story. Don't miss it.
Have you felt the pressure and passion of these early years? Like and subscribe so you don't miss the explosion of the greatest phenomenon in music history. And tell us in the comments which part of this first phase of his life impacted you the most.
Thank you very much, Trembles. We love you.